It isn't right that other men should fight and die, that I would just be sitting at home safe. I need to serve. I got the energy and the passion to serve as a medic. While everybody else is taking life, I'm gonna be saving it. With the world so set on tearing itself apart, it doesn't seem like such a bad thing to me to want to put a little bit of it back together.
Over the course of U.S. history, countless individuals have been called to serve in the military during times of war. They were all asked, and in many cases required, to risk their own lives and potentially take the lives of others, even if it went against their personal morals or religious faith.
When the moment came to step onto the battlefield, the crucial question they all faced was, how do you stay true to your beliefs and also fulfill your responsibility to serve your nation? For many, there was no easy answer. This is the story of Desmond Doss, a conscientious objector who found a way to balance the rights and responsibilities of citizenship by staying true to his beliefs and serving his country in war when called upon.
Born to parents William and Bertha, both workers in a local shoe factory, Desmond Doss grew up in the city of Lynchburg, Virginia. He lived in an extremely religious household, attending a Seventh-day Adventist church as a child, where he was taught the Bible's commandment, "Thou shalt not kill." His beliefs and his job as a defense industry worker initially provided him with a draft exemption during World War II, but he dismissed his chance to defer. He felt a responsibility to fight for our country, so he enlisted in the Army Medical Corps as a non-combatant. He believed the war was just and desired to do his part, but for him, that meant saving lives instead of taking them.
I'm Seventh-day Adventist. We are known as non-combatants. In the Army, there is no such classification. So when my pastor went to the draft board with me when I was 18 years old, I told them I had taken first aid and all to get into the medical corps, and I was a non-combatant.
He agreed to serve as a medic to fulfill his responsibility to his country, but he refused to pick up a weapon during basic training based on his religious principles. This gave him the status of a non-combatant conscientious objector, which unsurprisingly resulted in him being called a coward and facing the threat of court-martial. However, by deciding to serve as a medic, Doss set the stage to perform one of the most heroic feats of bravery in American military history. In doing so, he expanded the way that conscientious objectors could both uphold their personal values and fulfill their responsibilities to their country.
A conscientious objector is someone who refuses to serve in the military or bear arms based on religious or moral principles. The concept of conscientious objection dates back to ancient Rome, when early Christians refused military service during Roman conquest of the Parthian Empire, choosing peace over violence. The concept was championed by groups like the Quakers and the Mennonites, who upheld nonviolence despite immense pressure from society during the American Revolution and Civil War.
Conscientious objectors stand on three fundamental rights: the right to freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, and freedom of religion. These rights are protected globally in Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and in America through the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The First Amendment guarantees religious freedom. The Ninth Amendment protects individual conscience, and the Declaration of Independence affirms the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. For men like Desmond Doss, these rights weren't just ideals, they were the foundation of his decision to serve his country without compromising his beliefs.
With rights comes responsibilities. In exchange for freedoms protected by the Constitution, U.S. citizens are expected to support and defend it, obey the law, and participate in democracy. They also share the duty to protect their country when called upon. But conscientious objectors like Desmond Doss faced a moral dilemma. How could they uphold their responsibilities to serve while staying true to their deeply held beliefs? For Doss, the answer was clear. He wouldn't take life, but he would risk his own to save others.
The central dilemma for the conscientious objector is that, while they have the right to follow their personal beliefs, they also have a responsibility to help their country during wartime, especially since they enjoy so many benefits from their citizenship. In other words, is it fair for them to rely on others to fight and risk their lives to preserve their freedom and security if they choose not to fight? And if it is not, what other steps can they take to sufficiently fulfill this responsibility? In 1863, Senator Henry Wilson's Conscription Act gave the United States federal government the power to require men to report for military service, later known as the draft. Before World War I, there was no widespread legal framework for conscientious objection. However, in the US, the concept was recognized to a certain extent due to the country's emphasis on individual rights, specifically the freedom of religion. When the first national draft was established during World War I, conscientious objector applicants were required to prove their beliefs were sincere. If approved, they often served in non-combatant roles or did alternative civilian service. This allowed them to contribute to the war effort without violating their principles, but it also enabled them to avoid risking their lives on the battlefield like so many of their fellow citizens.
At the same time, thinkers like Bertrand Russell, who at the time was imprisoned in England in 1918 for arguing that individual rights should outweigh government requirements, were becoming more well known. With the magnitude of World War I, when almost 3 million U.S. men were drafted, nearly 4,000 of them identified as conscientious objectors, the concept became more visible in society. Afterwards, the federal government passed the Selective Training and Service Act of 1940, which contains specific language to protect conscientious objectors. It reads, quote, "Nothing contained in this act shall be constructed to require any person to be subject to combatant training and service in the land and naval forces of the United States who, by reason of religious training and belief, is conscientiously opposed to participating in war in any form."
Despite this change, during World War II, there was little public sympathy for conscientious objectors. Many of them were subject to harassment. They were called yellow bellies and typically viewed as cowardly and unpatriotic for not fulfilling their responsibilities to their country. For example, Bayard Rustin was imprisoned for refusing to cooperate with the draft and was put into federal prison in 1943. In prison, he, like many other objectors, faced harsh conditions and was viewed as an American traitor by many in his community. However, perhaps due to increased visibility during World War I, the number of conscientious objectors rose to as many as 70,000 during World War II. Of them, several became well known, such as civil rights activist Bayard Rustin. However, one name stands out among the rest: Desmond Doss. His story demonstrates how one man remained true to his beliefs while also fulfilling his responsibilities to society throughout war. In 1945, during World War II, Doss gained hero status at the Battle of Okinawa by saving 75 men trapped under enemy fire without firing a single shot. He himself got shot in his left arm from a sniper's bullet. After the war, he became the first conscientious objector to receive the Congressional Medal of Honor. Through his actions, he shattered stereotypes about conscientious objectors being unpatriotic or cowardly. He demonstrated how exercising one's individual rights can coexist with fulfilling broad responsibilities to society, showing that fulfilling those responsibilities doesn't always mean engaging in violence. His dedication to saving lives versus fighting offered a broader interpretation of what it means to serve your country honorably. Desmond Doss showed that rights and responsibilities don't have to be in conflict. He exercised his rights to religious freedom by refusing to kill, but he also fulfilled his duty to serve by risking his life as a medic. As he put it, "I felt an honor to serve my country. God and country, same as the rest of them. The only thing, I just didn't want to take life." His story proved that serving with courage doesn't always mean carrying a weapon. It also means saving lives.
Desmond Doss's story not only redefined the image of a conscientious objector, but also influenced how the U.S. military and society viewed their contributions. Where conscientious objectors were once viewed as cowards, many of them came to be respected by serving directly on the battlefield, fulfilling their responsibilities of their country, by risking their lives just as soldiers did in combat. During World War II, there were 70,000 conscientious objectors. In the Vietnam War, that number grew to 170,000. Inspired in part by Doss's example, many of these individuals choose to serve as medics. One estimate suggests that 7% of all medics in Vietnam were conscientious objectors. They included Thomas W. Bennett, who served and sacrificed his life to care for wounded soldiers while under fire. He, like Doss, was awarded the Medal of Honor for his heroism, becoming the second conscientious objector to do so.
Desmond Doss was instrumental in not only inspiring individuals across the world to stand by their personal morals while contributing to society, but also in reshaping America's beliefs about conscientious objectors and the balance of rights and responsibilities. He helped people to recognize that patriotism isn't solely defined by taking up arms, but by a commitment to serve your country in ways that align with your values. His story became culturally significant, inspiring not one but two films: the documentary The Conscientious Objector in 2004, and the Oscar-winning feature film Hacksaw Ridge in 2016, which brought his story to a global audience. His life and legacy continue to remind us that service, sacrifice, and courage come in many forms, and that staying true to one's principles can be a profound act of citizenship.